All right, so jumping in, we got Kareem up top, and we got Jake on the bottom. Is it prowess up against this really cool Mardu Pixie deck, and we're doing some scavenging on turn 1 from Kareem.
Yeah, one thing about this Mardu deck is that it's like very aggressive. The classic Pixie decks in Esper had this kind of aggressive slant with the scavengers, but taking out the sort of this town, loop stuff and just putting in more aggressive cards, both FOMO and Cutter are very aggressive. We see this. Yeah. This is an incredibly aggressive draw.
Yeah, I mean, look at mono red. Is it putting this kind of clock on? Yeah, of course it is. They can deal 4 on turn 2 with Heartfire Hero, Manifold Mouse. This deals 5.
Yeah, this is just 5 damage.
This is 5 damage. This is as aggressive as you can really get in Standard.
Yeah, Optimistic Scavenger is a phenomenal card.
Yeah.
It obviously asks a lot of you need to play enough enchantments, but it's unbelievable. The damage output it can have and the scalability as well around the damage-based removal spells.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 2 life is lost, the 3 damage is coming in, and we're going to pass it back to Jake. And wow, this is going to be tough to overcome. That was very much needing to be a Burst Lightning, with those triggers on the stack. That would have changed the texture of this Jake game pretty severely. But you know what else changed the texture of a game? No second land.
I wasn't going to say it in the deck intro, but Jake is actually playing 20 lands.
Okay.
A lot of his Izzet decks are playing 21 or even 22. There's a lot of cantrips, but this is a deck that if you have to spend your turn 2 or turn 3 playing a cantrip to find a land and not deploy a threat, it can really trip you up. So taking a little bit of a risk here, and oh my God.
And on the other side, we have a full house here. Scavengers over Hopeless Nightmare, and my goodness, this is a lopsided game.
This is the kind of game for Jake where, you know what? I'm almost glad I didn't draw second land because I was probably going to get smushed anyway.
Exactly, yeah. When you're chump blocking on turn 3, my goodness. Kareem didn't even have a third land, and that doesn't matter.
That is unbelievable. Yeah,
oh, God.
I think this is really cool seeing the different flavor of these bounce decks where there really is such a wide variety. The Esper Pixie was like the original. We saw some Dimir versions that kind of like melded Dimir midrange. We've seen the lockdown versions focus on being more controlling.
Yeah.
And then this Mardu version is kind of just like the total opposite of that.
Yeah.
Where instead of flipping towards the more controlling side, it's just flipping towards the more aggressive side.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's black-white Pixie, but instead of lockdowns and the more controlling elements, the Beezas maybe, you're going a little bit more aggressive. And I mean, FOMO is a card that is getting played now, but I still think it's oddly underplayed. I mean, that card's incredible.
Really, really good.
It's incredible.
And while this deck isn't really using the graveyard aspect of it very much, or the draw discard,
it's
an enchantment.
It's an enchantment.
So it just plays well with all of your enchantment stuff. So
and it's still going to get Delirium at some point. You know, that's still totally fine. Maybe not as easy to do in this deck as Oculus to get Delirium or something like that, but still totally reasonable. Now, what do we need to do besides play a second land from Jake Coenen?
I mean, be on the play. That'll help a little bit,
Well, Jake's got that checked off. That's perfect.
Bring some removal spells. Barrage looks pretty good here. Abrade. Pyroclasm is a weird one where, there are a lot of small creatures available, but the sizing that comes from the scavenger can kind of play around that, so maybe not worth it. Just got to have some kill spells. Torch Tower is pretty good too. Just unlike most Pixie decks where they have creatures, but they're playing a longer game with this town and other things, this is a much more aggressive Pixie deck, so you actually want, I think, the full suite of removal spells. Just kill these creatures, get them off the board, and get your plan going. And they're all cheap too. Torch Tower is great, and then mostly just do your Cutter thing.
Yep. Okay, and then from Kareem's side, what do you want there? Anything really standing out?
Authority.
Braid looks good.
Yeah, Braid's great, obviously, to kill the Cutters. Authority is pretty good against Cutter decks.
Yeah.
Turning Cutter to kind of a liability. And
what else would it be for if it's not for that, I would imagine?
Right, and it's also interesting because typically we see Authority in very defensive decks that care about the life gain and stopping haste. Here, it's stopping blockers, too.
Yeah.
So, it actually has some utility on the offensive side, too, which is cool. So, Authority looks great. Abrade looks great. For the most part, maybe Season to Taste a little bit. Maybe Get Lost here or whatever else. But for the most part, Abrade and Authority seem like the most important cards.
Yep, makes sense to me. Not going to come in this matchup, but I love a good invasion of Gobakon. It's fun to say and it's fun to play.
I call it invasion of Yo Gabba Gabba.
Oh, okay, all right.
Because I can't say Gobakon.
You just did it.
I did it.
Wow.
Oh, I did it.
Don't sell yourself short, Jim. Sky's the limit. So, all right, if y'all want to pick up some of these really cool cards, but hey, maybe you don't have that extra scratch laying around. Jim, is there anything that these players at home can do?
Yeah, you can hop on to sell your cards on StarCityGame.com. You can sell online or, of course, sell in person at events. And selling your cards, obviously, we all have a lot of cards.
Yes.
So if you need some cash, sure. But my favorite thing to do is get store credit. You get a 30% bonus on your cards to store credit. And Star City is very happy just to store it for you. And you can use it either at events or online, whenever needed. You are almost assuredly going to buy more Magic cards. So doing it this way saves you a lot of money, which is great. And it just feels good to kind of have a bankroll, where I'll take that those 4 cutters, put it on my tab, no problem.
Absolutely. I do love it. I'm actually getting an appointment set up for Tuesday as I got a standard event I'm actually playing in coming up pretty soon. So that's going to be fun. I got to boost up my store credit. Make sure to head on over to sellyourcards.starcitygames.com if you need to do the same. So getting back into this, we'll see if this turn, if this next game lasts more than a couple turns, as that was an incredibly impressive draw from Kareem, and pretty bad luck from a one land keep with an opt, and still bricking on that.
Yeah, seeing Monastery of Suspir chump block on turn, that was turn 2, right? Turn 3?
That was turn 3. Yeah.
Is kind of unbelievable, honestly. So Kareem really showing what his next capable of, and I think we'll see a closer game here. That was definitely on the high end for Kareem and on the low end for Jake. So a little more in the middle here. Going to see a good battle.
That's the really just joys of Magic. It's like you can be like, man, I just had the best games ever, and then like, hey, I got on camera and it just was my deck didn't function or my opponent's deck didn't function. Like that stuff happens in Magic, and players got to be ready to embrace the variance if it happens to them, or, if they do it to other players. It's going to happen throughout your Magic career many times in both directions.
Right. The fact that there's a super interesting choice to, keep that one-lander. Should I keep with an opt or not? Maybe I'm on the draw. All those interesting choices come from the fact that there is this, small risk of ruin.
Yeah.
Where, without the risk of ruin and without the possibility of just, a game imploding, a lot of attention is gone.
Yeah,
which is very, very exciting.
Because, honestly, think about it from Jake's side. Jake had the top 4 cards to find a land and didn't.
Yep.
That's still pretty bad luck. Like you said, you've basically said Jake deserved it by playing 20 lands instead of 21. we're gonna quote Jim on that. Whoa. No, but hey, that's the cost sometimes. Whenever you cut a land or something like that, I feel like I always want to know exactly what card I cut, so that when you draw it, when you need a land, you can, very well-deserved punish yourself.
I have a copy of Riftbolt with a smiley face on it. My good friend Frank Scarron did that.
Yeah.
He cut a land for the 4th Riftbolt in some burn deck at some point and wanted to know when it would be a land and when it would screw him. So,
love it. You heard it here first. Jim Davis marks his cards for events. Yep.
On the face, of course.
Oh, of course. Okay. All right. There we go. So getting back to the game, we got 2 talents here from Jake. No turn 1 play, but, still perfectly reasonable to be able to get these 2 prowess creatures into play. And start the same as the last game for Kareem. Has the Scavenger. No second Scavenger, but this one's going to get boosted up a little bit.
Yeah, obviously much more reasonable draws. Jake's on the board here. 2 creatures, which is great. Only 1 Scavenger. We're going to see a good game here.
Yep. And here is Pixie to pick this up. Do you attack into the double otter is the real question.
That is a big question. It's a pretty good exchange, honestly, on Kareem's side. There's more enchantments. The value of a Scavenger is very high.
Yeah.
Because the sizing is so good against the burn spells.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to get out of range of Torch the Tower or Burst Lightning is pretty powerful. So Kareem declines.
Yeah, I think I would have attacked there because, number 1, I don't think I'm blocking. I'd be too afraid. And, number 2, I don't think my opponent's willing to risk 2 prowess creatures for my 1 creature that already got a little bit of value. But who knows,
It would have been a very interesting spot if there had been an attack.
Yeah.
A really interesting question on both sides.
Because now if Jake attacks with these 2 otters, there's 0% chance I'm putting a Scavenger in front of an otter now.
Agreed.
I'm not trading 1, but I'd trade, my 1 Scavenger for 2. But that's without knowing the hands and with, being washed and being in the booth instead of down here playing in the feature match. So take it with a grain of salt.
For sure. I think there's a lot of questions there, and it's really interesting to think about the ramifications of each side of it.
Yeah.
Our director just chimed in. Professional Commander player Corey Baumeister.
I'll be here on Wednesday all day on Commander Versus. Absolutely. Otters do get in there. Looks like Kareem. Tamimi might be considering a block. And looks like we are going to take it. Thought about it. You know, I mean, the Pixie on an Otter is very reasonable, but Scavenger, I would assume we definitely don't want to do it, especially when we know we have a Hopeless Nightmare. And, hey, this would be a sick turn if we had a Corey Steelcutter into Hopeless Nightmare. Doing the thing would be pretty awesome. So we'll see if we got it. Oh,
man.
Baby.
Calling shots here.
Oh, baby. This deck's for me, it looks like.
Yeah, this is a really cool use of like both sides of the card here. Where it's a cool use of Steelcutter, but also a cool use of these aggressive Pixie cards that kind of fell off a little bit.
Yeah. I think the only thing that would make this, you know, even better with this Mardu Pixie deck is if the Scavenger triggered off artifacts too.
Yeah.
But all right, that you know, I'm willing to concede the fact that that would probably be too good.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Woo. Leroy.
You can put the token on the Monk?
Yes, because so you cast Hopeless Nightmare, the Steelcutter triggers, the Eerie trigger is on the enchantment entering the battlefield.
Oh, enters, not
it's
cast.
Not on
okay,
cast,
yep, all right, makes sense. All right. So we're able to get that Monk into some quick attacks, and man, have we reset Jake's life total? It's already at 9? What is going on here?
Interesting choice here to put the counter on the Monk because Scavenger being a 2/2 is still vulnerable now to Burst Lightning and Torch the Tower. Torch could kill it at 3 anyway, but with some loss of material. And the stock up we saw from Jake last turn, in theory, probably found a removal spell. You know, so interesting choice there, valuing the trample of the Monk and then the prowess of the Monk for future turns as well.
Or God forbid we get Pyroclasmed here. You know, like.
Classem does have the nice upside in these prowess decks of often being able to not kill your own creatures, so you can play a few spells first.
Yeah, and the other exchanges, you know, into the Flood Maw, Lithomatic Barrage. If you go too tall on your Scavenger, then you don't get the value as well. So, you know, give and take for going wide with the counter or going tall.
Yeah, we're turn 4, and then a lot of very interesting choices on both sides already.
Yeah. Hey, that's standard right now. You know, standard is not a, hey, let's get to turn 4 and then we'll start casting Haymakers, casting Siege Rhinos or anything like that. You know, this is a very much, you need to curve out. You need to be able to answer your opponent's threat at an effective time or be doing the faster thing.
It's cool, too, when all the cards are cheap like this, in a matchup like this, where because they're all cheap, you just have a lot of options.
Always, yeah.
You know, when you're playing a mid-range deck, sometimes it's just like, well, I have 4 lands, a Preacher, and a Shoulder.
Yeah.
So I'll play the Preacher on 3 and the Shoulder on 4. You know, whereas in these matchups, there's so much intricacy of like timing your spells. You know, how do you want to line up your prowess triggers? How do you want to line up your Steelcutters? You know, and then just so many options.
Yeah. Can I block? Can I afford to play around Monstrous Rage? You know, from some of these Izzet decks, like all that kind of stuff is really cool factors.
I also just want to say you've been roasting lands this entire broadcast.
Yeah.
Jake has some nice lands.
Oh, yeah.
Right, Mirage. I can't tell what the middle one is, but it looks very nice.
And, hey, the John Avon land is awesome as well in the yard, but am I just old-fashioned for wanting lands to all match these days? Am I the old man yelling at clouds for that, or?
No, I want that too.
Yeah. I mean, like, I like all those individual lands, but I want them all to be that. Or, you know, my favorite, I want them to be those full art lands, you know? Or those full text lands. Those are...
Clearly your favorite, yes.
Yeah, love them. Love them. All right, Hopeless Nightmare coming on the stack. I mean, this is looking like a scary start here from Jake. We got the Scavenger coming down. Another spell is going to get a Monk going. I mean, what if we have a Pixie here to pick up a Nightmare? Like, how are we not just game over?
I'm just loving this deck. It's just so cool to see these cards on the other side where, you know, they've gone so much in the other direction with the Orzhov Pixie deck being so controlling. And seeing a Pixie deck that just beats down is just great. And there's your Pixie, too.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Extends the hand immediately. Wow. Kareem Tamimi advancing to 10-1